Awesome, we're here. So it looks like today we are taking the current, most effective, most resonant step you can towards living or embodying whatever it is that matters most to you right now. That might sound like a tall order, but I'm going to invite you to listen to this video to explore it if it feels like it resonates for you. Because regardless of what it is you would like to experience in life, I'm going to share with you, let's say, a few universal, key, fundamental experiences and perspectives that you can go through to shift past any potential resistance or stuckness and to shift into the mode where you are making the most clear and effective choices for where you are at right now. Now, before we dive in, I'm Danielle Lynn, and I show up at moments like this to have conversations with you, with our friends, the fellow creators, alchemists, magicians at play, so that we can remember that life is ultimately all about perspective and the experience that you would like to cultivate and focus on. So let's walk through a few steps you can do right now, no matter what's going on in your life, that will allow you to both feel more at ease in your present moment and then make the most clear, most empowered choice you can make from here. Now, in some of my previous videos, I share steps that you can test, that you can apply to your life, that help you get really clear and really aligned about what your goal feels like in life. One of the reasons I help people focus on what it feels like is because the shape that your goals and your dreams may take may shift as you take those steps. It's actually a very common theme that people might arrive at a dream or a goal destination only to realize that particular thing didn't satisfy them or give them what they wanted. It doesn't mean that taking those steps was fruitless. And in fact, there may have been something there that they really did want to or desire or need to experience. But there is this way of living that we can sometimes fall into where we're constantly living for tomorrow or we're living to run from the past, rather than realizing that the cultivation of your present moment is actually the foundation upon which your future is starting to materialize. And we sometimes work in our heads that there's this conception of how long things will take or how it's going to have to look when it shows up. And while having that kind of imagery on one level could seem helpful because it gives us something to focus on, it can also be very restrictive. And it can also create situations where if things don't appear to turn out the way we thought they should, we can start to become overzealous in our attempts to fix what's going on, rather than to be objectively curious and to continue to make movements that aren't just aligned with the idea vision you had of the goal, but let's say the heart, the resonance, the actual outcome you want, whether or not it's starting to form the way you think it should. So let's say you want a particular job and you're going for that job with all your heart and soul, and you apply the manifestation techniques or your mindset techniques, your visualizations, and let's say you just don't get the job. Now, you can feel your feelings, feel your authentic feelings, if there's grief or anything else. But if you are attuned to the heart of your vision and goal, what you might understand is, okay, if that job didn't arrive for me now, that means there is something even more resonant for me to connect with now. So let me ask my gut, all right, what step do I take now? Where can I focus now? What will satisfy this that I may not be seeing right now? We can apply this to relationships as well. I've talked about this, where some people might get very fixated on a specific person because that person appears to reflect to them all the qualities they want or imagine, or they have a strong intensity towards this person. But If you don't place the expectation on the specific human being and instead go a resonant yes to the energetic embodiment that this is, that also meets me, that person that you might ideally be thinking is for you will either step in very quickly or step out very quickly. Okay. What happens is once you get very, let's just say, committed to the most resonant outcome, and you're open to leaning in to the opportunities that show up that align with that resonant outcome without saying it must be this, now you're starting to play with the good soup. All right. I'm calling it the good soup. Just imagining it's very tasty soup. What I'm describing to you in many words is the ability to engage with your life without being attached to the specific forms it takes. And this kind of approach to life allows you to be fluid in your movements and choices. Success isn't about never having perceived failures. Success is more of an energetic attitude that presupposes itself through simply being active. It doesn't actually matter how many times things appear to fail because the success is inevitable. But it's not something you must convince yourself of. It's something you operate in the knowing of. And there is a difference and a distinction to that. So a lot of people want to know how to embody the knowing of that, because it's one thing to talk about it and it's another thing to live it. So when somebody wants to live an experience, to embody an experience in their reality, here's some of the approaches that you can take from here, from wherever you're at. One of the first things that I invite people to do is the exercise that I walk people through when I invite them to visualize the end goal and then drop the story. I can link that in the video description if you haven't seen it yet. But this is a practice that allows you to get very imaginative and visceral with what it would feel like to arrive at your end goal, and then to realize that we don't know what we don't know, so we're going to use the imagery we have available. It's almost like creating a vision board in your head, but then without saying it has to look exactly like that vision board, I'm going to feel what it feels like to be there, drop the expectation that it's got to look that way, and then say, all right, now what step to take? So now we're in the now what step to take in this description right here. In the now what step to take, sometimes there's this idea that you must make big, bold movements. I got to push through this, quit this, start that, do this. And here's my experience of it. The shift we make is in our energy first. It's in the way we're perceiving a situation. And it doesn't mean you need to get, let's say, caught up in your head or caught up in the thought of catching your energy up to a place. I'm sharing that when I've noticed that my energy, my inner state arrived at a certain point, I started to simply move nearly seemingly automatically in alignment with the way my energy is and was. Now, we can cultivate our inner energy space the same way you cultivate a house or you cultivate your physical body. Some of it can be done through things like how you speak to yourself. It could be done through things like affirmations, through self-care. There's a lot of things that I share in my videos that have little hints and seeds about ways that you can care for yourself, to tend to your inner garden, that allow your gifts to naturally flourish. It's like taking, once again, healthy care of your physical body. It's not that you have to micromanage every single thing with it, but by having certain care routines with it, you tend to add momentum to its healthiness, to its prosperity. And you can do the same for your inner world. The reason that we don't over attach to the image of the outcome is because we're more focused on cultivating the energy of being in the outcome. It's almost like building up speed. It's almost like if you start walking and then you're starting to run and then you're starting to sprint and then you're starting to spread your arms. And in this case, I'm pretending we have wings. And then you're starting to lift off. But it's what I'm describing is one of the ways that we can approach a shift in a loving way. It's not the only way, but it's one of the ways, is through building energetic momentum. So we can actually incorporate practical habits in our life to inspire and influence extraordinary shifts in our outer world without seemingly having to push or motivate or force or contort ourselves. It's really quite amazing to me how effective we can be by, I describe it as making consistent micro shifts within that shift the patterns around. It's almost like you realize that your tiny consistent actions are like the drop of water that falls into a pond, and the ripples start small, but they begin to emanate. And they get bigger and bigger. And you keep dripping and they keep going and growing and emanating. Our lives and our energy patterns, they work in a similar way. Which is why I often invite people, if there's a lot of chaos and intensity going on around you that seems to be in opposition to what you want, you can be aware of it without overindulging focus in it or trying to resist or pressure or change it. You can apply shifts within your energetic focus now to create a more solid next now moment. This making these resonant choices to apply energetic momentum to your situation is like making micro choices in your finances, where you adjust the way you spend or receive in ways that are sustainable for you, to start seeing in a week's time what's shifted, in a month's time what's shifted. Sometimes our dreams can provide a comforting sanctuary in our mind. And once you bring them into reality, they start to have the potential to be annoyances or to reflect things that we would otherwise find annoying, such as if you were to bring your vision of a business online. Oh, I'm going to make my art a business, and suddenly you're faced with things like administrative work or fulfilling orders and things like this. Which is not to say, again, there's anything wrong with that. It's just, it's very different to be in the fantasy of something and to be embodying something. So giving yourself some permission to take that step, in a sense, is also giving yourself permission to potentially experience failure and pain through embodying that. Because when it's in a dream state, we don't need to face the possibility of failure other than potentially never living it. But oftentimes we might shrug that off and say, well, it just wasn't in the cards. If you would like to play those cards and see what happens, what you're invited to do is make a choice right now that actualizes the step. I'll give you an example. If you want a certain kind of house, instead of telling yourself the story of what it's going to take to have that house, begin to look up images of that house. Begin any kind of house. Like, you can search for it online, you can search in listings. And if you find yourself saying, oh, you don't have the funds, or you can't do this or this, you can listen to those things. Keep in mind, those are just stories. There are so many ways that things can come into actuality. If we suffocate those dreams before they can even take flight, even a little bit, it's almost like writing out a letter and never sending it. By starting to engage in possibilities of looking at things, you actually accomplish a couple things. You put some energy and momentum out into the world towards saying, I am embodying the actualized step of this. So you actually shift your frequency to one that's gone from dreaming to actualizing. So it's subtle, but it's powerful. And the other thing that you do is you actually give your mind some more context to visualize with. This is actually quite important, because if you're not taking the steps, the mind can only build off of concepts. The more real the steps are, even if the steps are, okay, I'm creating a spreadsheet and I'm listing all these things I like, and I'm looking at these things, oh, I didn't know that existed before. You're actually adding to the spectrum of what the mind could conceptualize, which can sometimes help you widen your field of possibilities. So literally just the act of taking actionable steps to inquire about things, to organize things, whatever calls to you, this actually opens up the spectrum of what you might be able to perceive and connect with. Now, additionally, well, sometimes people say to me, well, I don't want to do that step. I don't want to. I'm like, okay, what step would you like to do? Because if there's something that you perceive you want and you imagine you would enjoy embodying it right now, then the step to embody something is to embody something. I'm going to say that again. The step to embody something is to embody something. There's no waiting for embodiment. It might appear that there is some time waiting for all the elements to actualize the way you might visualize, but you start embodying now. It would be like being the musician. You embody the musician now. And then you go ahead and you take the steps of, okay, what instrument? Well, I'm going to get it. I'm going to sign up for this. I'm going to sign up for that. The subtle difference, however, between someone playing at embodying something and someone actually embodying something is that there is no circumstance in which something shows up and you go, oh, well, that's it. I guess I'm not that. It just inspires you to go, oh, well, that turned up. I didn't expect that. All right, I wonder how this is all going to shake out. What step now? I'm talking about being so in tune and attuned with what you know you are, that even if something seems to show up in opposition to it, you don't receive that as opposition to you being that. You simply receive that as, then I wonder how it can be. I wonder what will shift. I wonder what I will discover. I wonder what step to take now. All right. So you understand these two steps. You understand about tuning in to what it is and then giving yourself some permission to take a step now. Let me address something even deeper. This is not about proving to me or to you or anyone else about who you are or what you have to do. If you imagine you need to create proof for you to be that, it's still not an embodiment. I know that can sometimes sound frustrating, but I'm saying that because it may actually help you drop the expectation or any subtle pressure on yourself. Because this isn't about pressure. It isn't about having to do something to be something. It's about being something and then experiencing what it is to be it. Because no matter where you are right now in life, or what your situations are, or what your resources are or are not available to you is, if you have the spark and the inspiration in your heart, spirit, and being, then I invite you to claim it. I invite you to be it. And even if it looks unconventional, consider this a window and an invitation to go, well, unconventional than I am. And so how does it get to look? And then the more curious you are with yourself, the more you realize that you're probably a trailblazer who is alchemizing a certain kind of embodiment or presentation and doing it your way. And your way includes all the resources and the challenges that you're in right now. Because I guarantee you, that's a strong word, I guarantee you that if you feel inspired to do it, it's already yours. All that's left is you giving yourself permission to explore each resonant step as it comes. And I know you have it in you. I know you are it. And I say that with an incredible amount of love and appreciation for you. Cool cat, you. I'm going to add some what ifs for you. I wrote them down in my book. What if my heart showed the way and I trusted it? What if my failures were successes and my successes were failures? What if there was no requirement to be everything that I am? What if everything is already working in my favor and I'm simply remembering how in each moment? What if my choices and focus always clearly showed me where my most thriving step is possible? What if it all gets to keep working out and I might just be having fun right now? My friend, we have a new meditation up for empowerment in the Self-Alchemy Lab at the time of recording this. If you haven't already, I also invite you to check out the Flow book. It's connected to my newsletter. I invite you to download it and read it for yourself if it's resonant. It has some powerful perspectives in there that I imagine will be of assistance to you at this time. I imagine shortly in the lab as well, we're going to dive into the Flow book because it's one of the tools that I actually use in my own life with consistent regularity ever since about 2016, 2017, when it was first transmitted into the world. And so, my amazing friend, I appreciate you. If this has been of assistance to you, please like, share, and subscribe. Maybe do a dance. I'll feel your dance rhythms across the cosmos. And as always, I deeply appreciate you, and I look forward to our next conversation.